Okay, so I'm learning something about myself recently. You know how I'm sure you've heard of the word codependent, and I'm sure you've heard of the four types of reactions when your amygdala is triggered. There is fight, freeze, flight, and fawn. And when you are a trauma survivor, like I am, generally there is the initial response. Mine is freeze. I'll just freeze where I am. And then my second, I didn't know there was a secondary response, and I'm just finding this out, learning about it, and I wanted to share with you the fawn type that is connected with codependency. Fawn types seek safety by merging with the wishes, needs, and demands of others. They act as if they believe that the price of admission to any relationship is the forfeiture of all their needs, rights, preferences, and boundaries. I'm going to just read through things that I have taken notes or underlined. This is from a CPTSD trauma book. A friend of mine showed me a few pages that are about the fawn type. It begins in childhood. The child is parentified and takes care of the needs of the parent. The narcissist reverses the parent-child relationship. The child may turn into the parent's confidant, housekeeper, excuse me. She may be pressed into service to mother or other younger siblings. Fawn types are the most developmentally arrested in their healthy sense of self, which is why I have never had a good sense of self-esteem, self-worth, having self-love. Fawn types typically respond to psychoeducation about the 4 F's with great relief. That would be me. The codependent needs to understand how she gives herself away by over-listening to others. I have seen numerous inveterate codependents become motivated to work on their assertiveness when they realize that even the thought of saying no triggers them into an emotional flashback. Whenever I say no, or even think about saying something that means I can't, I feel the anxiety building. I feel like I'm going to curl into myself, like I'm bracing for that. You're not allowed to say no, blah, blah, blah. That is a trauma response, and I did not know that. Most trauma survivors are hybrids of the 4 F's. Most of us have a backup response that we go to when our primary one is not effective enough. It's called a trauma hybrid. Comparing fawn origins with the fight, flight, and freeze. I chose the name fawn over the 4 F's in the typology because, according to Webster, fawning means to act servilely, to cringe, and to flatter. For me, I can remember as a toddler, codependent learns quickly that protesting abuse leads to even more frightening parent retaliation. Like if we talk back, if we say our opinion, there would be either the belt to the butt or a stick on the butt or a rolled up newspaper on the butt, or the worst one for me. The physical thing wasn't the worst one for me. For me, it was an emotional one. If they looked down their nose at me, it made me shrink and feel like I was less, or like I was naughty, like I was a bad kid. Moreover, many abusive parents reserve their most harsh punishments for talking back, hence ruthlessly extinguishing the fight response in the children. Unfortunately, this typically happens at such an early age that they later have little or no memory of it. Now this part right here, it speaks to me, but I'm not sure how to put a finger on it. The toddler who bypasses the adaptation of the flight defense may drift into developing the freeze response and become the lost child. This child escapes his fear by slipping more and more deeply into disassociation. He learns to let his parents' verbal and emotional abuse go in one ear and out the other. I don't think I don't know. I know I disassociate a lot. There are quite a few things from my childhood. There's a lot of my childhood that I don't really remember. I don't feel like I was there. I don't feel like I was part of it. There are pictures that I've seen of like me in some kind of dress or memory or whatever, and I'm like, I know that's me as a kid. I can see myself in the mirror. I can tell that's me because that's what I look like. But I don't remember wearing that dress. I don't remember being in that place at that time. I don't remember anything about that moment. It bears repeating that the fawn type is often one of the gifted children that Alice Miller writes about in The Drama of the Gifted Child. I'm going to look up that book. Alice Miller, The Drama of the Gifted Child. She is the precocious one who discovers that a modicum of safety can be purchased by becoming variously useful to her parents. I was one of those gifted children, and I did not know that until looking back. A couple years ago, I was finally diagnosed as autism spectrum, and finding and remembering and having like these light bulb moments of myself, either middle school or high school or different jobs or whatever. It's like, oh my gosh, this is why this happened. I get these pieces of myself now, and I've been putting those parts of myself together over the last few years, and finding that I'm one of those kids that constantly fawned, like drop of a hat. She cleverly forfeits all needs that might inconvenience her parents. I never needed anything because I didn't have needs. I didn't have wants. I used to have dreams like about what I wanted to be and stuff like that, but I unconsciously gave those up. She stops having preferences and opinions that might anger them. She is often parentified and becomes as thoroughly helpful to the parent as she can. I have always been the good kid, the one that does everything they're told. I didn't want conflict. These response patterns are so deeply set in the psyche that as adults, many codependents automatically respond to threat like dogs, symbolically rolling over on their backs, wagging their tails, hoping for a little mercy and an occasional scrap. Webster's second entry for fawn is to show friendliness by licking hands, wagging its tail, etc., said of a dog. I find it tragic that some codependents are as loyal to dogs, even the worst masters. Yeah. I have a lot of anxiety around just trying to know who I am, trying to be myself, trying to be able to speak, trying to have my own thought, trying to have an opinion, because sometimes I really don't have an opinion. I don't have a preference. I've, over the last couple years, like I've been saying, been making myself this bucket list, if you will, of things that, like, if it comes to mind, I'm like, you know what? Do I want to try that? I don't know if I want to try that. So I'll write it down and I'll reference it some other time and I'll be like, I don't know if I want to try that, or I've tried it or whatever, and I like cross it off and I say, this is how it was. And those curious moments of, I don't know if I like it or not. I've never done this. I've never been in this situation. I'm trying to help myself form opinions and form preferences and be okay if someone doesn't agree with me or if I don't agree with them. Once a child realizes that being useful and not requiring anything for herself gets her some positive attention from her parents, codependency begins to grow. I define trauma-induced codependency as a syndrome of self-abandonment and self-abnegation. I had to look that one up. Abnegation, denial. Yes. Self-denial. Always saying yes and doing whatever people wanted. Very susceptible to being exploited. Like I said, I was the yes girl. Codependents seek safety and acceptance in relationships through listening and eliciting. This is probably why I have always been a really good listener. I've always been able to give people advice. I've always been able to, if someone asks me an opinion on something, or if it's not necessarily my own opinion or my own thought on it, but I like to research, I like to read, so different things that I've soaked in, I can use as advice for other people, even if it's not from myself. They ask questions to keep the attention off themselves because their parents taught them that talking was dangerous and their words were indictments that would inevitably prove them guilty of being unworthy. Yes, so this is, in a sense, why I have never felt like I was good enough or worth something, or I've just always been not a disgrace. That's totally not the right. Like I was a burden or something that I'm just here, you know. Who wants me to do something next? I'm just here. The implicit code of the fawn type is that it is safer, 1, to listen than to talk, 2, to agree than to dissent, 3, to offer care than to ask for help. I'm not good at asking for help. Number 4, to elicit the other than to express yourself. And 5, to leave the choices to the other rather than to express preferences. Unfortunately, these are all very true. I have felt and feel all of these. This part, I can't read all of this because I'd be reading the whole page. Recovery from trauma-based codependency. At later stage recovery progress, the survivor increasingly knows her own mind. That's what I'm attempting to do now with myself, is know what my thoughts are, figuring out who I am, and individuating myself, so I'm able to know who's Cami, who's the other person, are there pieces of the other person still here, can I, if I find things in myself that I don't feel are me, I am trying to separate that out of myself so I am fully me and no one else. Many fawns, okay. Listen, and then I have an explanation. Many fawns survive by constantly focusing their awareness on their parents to figure out what was needed to appease them. Some became almost psychic in their ability to read their parents' moods and expectations. This then helped them to figure out the best response to neutralize parental danger. For some, it even occasionally won them some approval. Okay. As an autistic, I didn't have to hyper-focus on that. I didn't have to constantly be aware of what my parents were like, watching them or whatever. I was and am automatically empathetic. So I can feel and respond to emotions and energies that are in the room with me, or even in the same space as me, whether that space is a house or whether it's a classroom or whether it's someone down the hallway. I can automatically be like, okay, something is off, and I can put myself in their place, and I can, because being autistic, sometimes they say that autistics are not empathetic, but that's a complete lie. There are different types of empathy, and I am very sensitive to other people's feelings. So I don't have to constantly focus on other people to try to read them and know them and figure out what they need, I automatically empathize with them. I need to work to stay inside my own experience. Yep, realize that this is where I am. I need to focus on this being right now, this body I'm in. This is where I am. I'm in my dining room. I am a parent. I am a homeowner. I have to work on being present in my space. That is disassociation. When I'm emotionally detached, psychologically detached from where I am and not feeling and hearing and being able to connect all my five senses to where I am in space and time. I'm going to have to look these up, emotional mirroring and verbal matching, because we have to work to reduce inauthentic emotional mirroring and verbal matching. There is something on this page right here that really got me. Dysfunctional emotional matching. Reduce the habit of automatically shifting our moods to match someone else's emotional state. Always. Unfortunately, because I'm autistic and because I empathize so easily, I also fall into the fawning aspect of mental health so easily. Resisting the pressure to pretend you're always feeling the same as someone. I do that so much. You do not have to laugh when something is not funny. I did that my whole life because I thought that's what I had to do to fit in. Now I'm finding that I can just check myself and be like, okay, well, that's another thing about being autistic, though. Sometimes we don't realize what humor is. We don't realize, we don't know emotions very well. There's being able to feel others' emotions and empathize with them is not the same as knowing what emotions are. I can feel something really, really easily, but I have no idea what it's called. I have no idea what the name for it is. It takes me a long time to figure out, what am I feeling? What is this emotion? And because I'm so empathetic and so easily fall into this fawn category, I think it's a good thing that it takes me a long time to name what those things are, because if I'm taking all my mental energy to try to name an emotion that isn't even mine, then I'm taking away energy and time and space and brain power from my life. It's so easy for me to get sucked into somebody else. You don't have to oh, I said that. When a friend is feeling bad, you don't have to act like you feel bad. I don't have to. Okay, so if somebody else is in the middle of a crisis, I don't have to act like I'm in the middle of the crisis with them. That's actually really bad. If I am someone that they're calling because I'm in a good place right now and they need someone who is solid, and I slip into this chaos with them, that's not what they need. But it's very easy for someone who fawns to do that. When you're feeling bad, you don't have to act like you feel happy. It's okay for me to feel bad, recognize that I feel bad, and sit with that and learn from that, instead of being it's kind of like hiding depression and anxiety with masking. Autistics know all about masking, but I need to, there's so many different things, emotionally, mentally, psychologically. So when you throw in emotional trauma, physical trauma, being autistic, being someone who freezes and fawns, being someone who is codependent, there's a lot of baggage. There's so much baggage, and it's so hard to not feel just completely drained. And then you add on, with me, you can add on like chronic illness and mental disability, and it's just so much. Instead of having like agreeing with people and being like, oh, blah blah blah, I like that too, and it's like, no, I don't. Instead, I can reach for a deeper, more authentic truth. I can let you know I'm pleased that you had these things that you like. That doesn't necessarily mean I have to like them too. I did not know that I had unconsciously gravitated to this all or nothing nonsense because it was something. So I was somewhat desperate, trying to seduce everyone I met into liking me in the hope that I could finally feel safe. That's what fawning is. It's deep stuff. I have already worked through some of this stuff without even knowing what it was. But disapproval can still occasionally trigger a flashback. I can occasionally experience some people's disapproval as a good thing. Sometimes it's validating to know I'm doing something right and moving in the right direction. And the only way that I can have affirmation of that is if I am using those new tools and things that I'm learning and receive disapproval. Because if I'm only ever getting approval from people, that means that I'm only doing what they want. If I do things that I want, things that I know, that I like and I'm good at, it's not me focusing on me and being prideful. It's me focusing on me and being, hey, I'm figuring out who I am. And I'm becoming my own person. I am 38 years old, and I am finally becoming my own person. I am not allowing my household to be a place of, we are not continuing these things in my household. I am showing my girls and teaching my girls through, mom does counseling, mom goes to PT, mom needs to learn to ask for help. They know that. Sometimes they'll see me struggling, they'll be like, Mom, do you need help? And sometimes I'm stubborn and say, I can do it myself. But there are some times where I will start crying and admit yes, please give me a hand. This is also probably, I think, where it's hard for me when I have harder days in my disabilities where I need my cane or I need my walker or I need my wheelchair, and I don't want to use them in public because I feel like I'm going to be looked down on because I don't look disabled. But I have to be okay with it. If I'm not okay with it, then I'm not allowing myself to live my full life. So I am going to pick up that one book. What was that called again? Blah, blah, blah. Alice Miller, The Drama of the Gifted Child. I'm going to have to look that up. And that's not me tooting my horn. That's me saying, yes, I've always been on the autism spectrum, and I've always been a gifted kid, and I've always had these different things that I am now in my adulthood learning that I have always been. I have always been codependent. I have always been the yes girl. I've always been some things that I need to change about myself because they are not healthy. I want to be healthy. I want to thrive. And I want my trauma story to be part of my life story, not where I am now, not in my future. I want my trauma story to be my story. The story comes from living through something. So I'm going to get the name of the book that my friend actually sent these to me out of. She sent me emails of different pages. But something to think about, a conversation to have. by all means, let's have a conversation. You matter.